Okay, so this is going to be the fifth video, the last video for the grinder assembly. This video will basically take all the parts we've created, put the final assembly together, and then walk through setting up the drawing. So this video will probably be a little bit longer, but we'll get through it and get through it hopefully pretty quickly here. Okay, so first thing I want to do is I'm going to get my SolidWorks back up and running, and I'm going to start by going ahead and getting a basically an assembly started here. So let me close out. Sorry, that's a 3D print I was doing. Now, I'm going to do a file new, and as we've talked about in class, we do not have a template in our SolidWorks templates for assemblies. So what we're going to do is use an alternative tab, and you should see several at the top here when you do your file new. I only have one right now, which is tutorial. Okay, and when I click on this, I do have some choices here. I could create a part, I could create a drawing, or I could create an assembly. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start by creating an assembly. And I'm going to say OK. And as that's working on this, what I'm basically going to do, is just to show you this, is I'm going to go ahead and start by bringing the base in first. Okay, so I'm going to bring the base as my first piece. All right, so again, as we talked about in class, I want to put this together as I physically have the parts in front of me. So I'm going to start with the base. Then I'm going to bring in my two sliders, okay, put the handle on top and put in my two screws. Then I'm going to put my knob on, and underneath here I'll add the last screw and finish the assembly. Okay. Now, to do this, I'm going to slide this over to the other screen so I have something to refer to. When I started this, you will notice right away it goes in here and it wants me to bring in a base part. Okay, so this is very important to know where your parts are stored. Now mine, I saved to the desktop because my H drive is full. You should have yours on your H drive in a folder, and hopefully a dedicated folder called Grinder Assembly. If not, just find the base part. Okay, so I'm going to start by going down through here, and I'm going to find my base part, which is right here. Okay, I'm going to do Grinder Assembly base right here with my last name, and I'm going to say open. Okay. Now, what's going to happen here is I'm just going to place this somewhere in the center of the screen and left click. Now, at this point, I can go back, and under this new tab called Assembly up here, I'm going to insert some more components. So I'm going to left click on that, and it's automatically going to open up the Browse folder for me again. Okay, and again, now I'm going to find in that same spot a grinder. Okay, I'm going to say Open. I'm going to bring a grinder, or slider into here. Now you could bring a second one in, but I'm going to show you a shortcut. By holding your control key down and then left clicking and holding on the slider itself, I can drag a second one out. Okay, so it's control, left click and hold, drag another one out. All right, now I'm going to go back and insert some more components. Okay, I'm going to bring in the handles. I usually try to bring all my stuff in for the most part into my final assembly. Okay, so I'm going to start like this. Now at this point I'm going to pause, okay, because I want to start putting some of these parts together. First thing I want to do is I need to rotate this one around so it's facing into this slot. So what I'm going to do is right click and hold and rotate. Now it does not have to be perfect. I'm just going to kind of get right about there. That looks good. Okay, this one here I'm just going to slide over into this area, and then that way I can start getting these lined up and mated correctly. So what I'm going to do now is turn on my mate tool. Okay, so I'm going to go to my mate tool here, turn it on. And what I want to mate here is the following. Okay, the first thing I want to do is I want to take the bottom of each slide and make sure it's touching this face of these cutouts. Okay, so it's sitting right there. Now right now if you were to grab this, all it's going to do is just sit on that face right there, but it's not in the slot as I need it to be. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this edge right here of this slider, and I'm going to mate it to this edge that matches right here. Okay, now this is important. You have to do the edges, because if you try to do the faces, these angles are slightly off. It will throw the whole thing off and freeze it. So the only thing you can do right now is to take that edge and line it up with this edge. If you hit your check mark, now you'll see this can slide back and forth in that slot without any moving. Okay, I'm going to repeat that on the other side. I'm going to go here, hit the bottom face, hit this face so that they're on the right plane together. So that is sitting right there where it's supposed to. And then I'm going to finish by taking this lower edge again and lining it up with this lower edge. Now I don't want the face there, I want the edge of this right here. Okay, so I'm going to take the edge of there and the edge of this. I'm going to hit my check mark. And now what you can see is that both of these are able to slide into their hole, okay, or into their spots. So I'm going to go ahead and close off this mate for a second. I'm going to slide these in a little bit so you can kind of get a feel for what's going on here. All right, so the next thing I want to do is I want to take this piece here. Sorry for the bell there. I don't know why the bell's on, but it is. I'm going to take and line up these holes with these screw holes here and here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is again go to my mate tool. I'm going to go here to the inside of this hole here and highlight that hole right there. Okay, now again, all that does is it gets it so this can spin around that hole. That's all it's doing. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with this hole. I'm going to take that back hole here and I'm going to lock it into this hole here. Okay, now the problem is this is still floating up above. Okay, the holes are lined up and you can see this all ties together. I'm just moving this back and forth. You can kind of see how the slider works. All right, now what I need to do to finish this off is I'm going to rotate with my middle mouse button pressed down, hit the bottom face of this handle and the top face of either one of these sliders, does not matter which one, and now that is mounted on. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn my mate tool off for a second. Let me go back to my isometric. Now, if you just left click and hold and start dragging in a circle, you will see what the slider or this grinder does. Okay, it's called a grinder. It's like a coffee grinder. It's like the old school, put stuff in there and you grind it down. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just kind of put this off in this direction about right there. That's fine. Okay, but I'm not done with this yet. I'm going to add 2 screws here. Okay, so now I've got to go back and I've got to look at my parts here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my parts and I'm going to go and pull this drawing back up. Give me a second here. Pull this back over. Okay, this is where I now have to look for these screws. So I'm looking at number 5 right here, which matches up to this right here. So I'm looking for a crosshead. That's what CR means, crosshead. Truss head machine screw. Okay, truss head. So basically, if you look at this closely, it looks like it's got a dome on the top, a flat bottom, and it's a Phillips head. Okay, it's going to be a .164-32, which is probably an 832. That's going to be .4375 in length. Okay, so let's go and get that screw into the spot. So over here to my right, I hit the books. I go to my toolbox and tell it to add in now. All right, we talked about this the other day with the folders. All right, the folder we're working with, because we drew this in inches, is going to be the ANSI inch folder. So I double click. I go to bolts and screws, and I'm looking for what's called a truss head. I'm not sure if they're in here or not. There's thumb screws. So really what I'm looking for is a machine screw, truss head machine screw, yes. So I'm going to go here to machine screws. Okay, so here's your truss head right here, the last one. Truss head machine screw. Okay, let me back this up. Now to get this onto your part, all you're going to do is left click, drag this out, and let go. Okay, now it's going to give you a property manager, and usually it defaults to the very smallest one. Obviously that's way too small for these holes. So now what I got to do is use that information from the bill of materials. Well, I can tell you this is a number 8-32 screw. I think, maybe not. Should be, but it isn't. Is it a 632? Hold on here. Length. Oh, sorry. No. Sorry. It is an 832. The length of it is going to be .4375. It's going to be a crosshead. Now, again, a crosshead is this little cross here. This is slotted. This is cross. CR in that note stands for cross. And then the last part of the note is a C. And here's that actual note that's going to go into your bill of materials. The last part had a C to it. Okay, this is N. N means no thread. Okay, simplified. C means cosmetic. So I'm putting a cosmetic thread in there. So now that changes that note. So there's your note at the bottom. Okay, now to get this to work, I'm just going to hit my check mark. And then I'm going to bring a second screw out here somewhere. Okay, now you're still active, so I'm going to hit escape real quick. I'm going to hit my little rebuild up here so I can see my two screws. And then I'm going to play with my right click of my mouse and hold and rotate so that both screws are facing in the approximate right direction. What I'm going to do from here is I'm going to take my mate tool and highlight the shaft of this screw and match it with this hole. I'm going to do the same thing with this screw head or this screw thread to the inside of that hole. Now this is the hard part. I'm going to undo this because if you look here, I need to move this up above. The problem is if it's below, it's going to hide inside this part, and then you're going to have to try to scramble to figure out how to find it and pull it out. So I usually undo, pull the part up, and now again, use my mate tool to line these two pieces up. Okay, I'm going to hit my check mark, and then I'm going to go ahead and kind of rotate with the middle mouse button down, hit the bottom face of this screw, top face of this handle, and hit my check mark. Rotate once again, bottom face of this screw, rotate this face of the handle, and check. Now I'm going to turn my mate tool off for a little bit here. I'm going to do an isometric view so you can kind of see where this is sitting right now. Okay, so we're almost done with this. The only thing I have left to add in here is my grinder knob. Okay, so I'm going to go in here and do a insert components again. It opens right back up here for me to browse. I'm going to go back into my folder and find my grinder assembly knob. I'm going to say open. Place this above. And now using my mate tools, I'm going to rotate over, highlight the inside hole of my knob, and match it to the inside hole of the handle. Okay, now this is only sitting on there. There's nothing else going on. So I need to do one more mate, which is this bottom face to the top of this face, and hit my check mark. Okay, so now at this point, here is, oops, it does freak out on you when you try to pull it. Sometimes it doesn't like it. If you do it slowly, sometimes it'll work. I usually grab the handle, works better than the knob, but that's basically what it's going to do. It's just going to kind of slide around back and forth, and if you just kind of keep it at a small point, it works pretty well. Okay, you can actually animate this if you wanted to, but I'm going to bring this back to kind of about, I'm going to grab this and kind of bring it right back, if it'll let me, back to about right there. Okay, now there is a screw that is in the bottom of this grinder knob. Okay, if you look, there's a screw right here, screw number 6, which is a crosshead truss head machine screw, number 832, but this one will be 3/4 of an inch long. Okay, 3/4 of an inch. So again, going back over into here to my little books here, it will open up the last spot you were at. So we're going to be right back where that truss head is again. This time though, I'm going to left click and drag it out here below and let go. It's going to start with the same one, an 832.4375. I want to change that from 0.4375 to 0.75. I'm going to keep the cosmetic on, and then I'm going to hit my check mark, hit escape because I only need one of them, and then I'm going to right click and point this so it's going upwards. Turn on my mate tool. I'm going to go down here and click on the shaft of the screw, line it up with the inside of that hole, and then finish off with this face of the screw sitting flush with this face of the handle. I will now hit my check mark, turn off my mate tool, go to my isometric view, and now what I'm going to do is do a Control S and call this, I'm going to do the save all. Now this is again the problem some of us are having, others of you are not, but in this case it's requiring me to save my screws. Save them to the same folder as your parts. This is really, really important. So I'm going to go to here and say save all. Yes, I'm going to save my read only. Yes, and then I'm going to point it to the same spot as my other materials. I'm going to name this assembly here grinders, or I'm going to call it final grinder assembly underscore my last name. Okay, and hit save. Okay, the screws, I'm going to put them in the same spot as my other parts. So I'm just going to save it as is and say save. I'll actually do both, I think. Select configuration, I'll do both. Actually, you know what? I'll just do current configuration, say OK. Probably is going to ask for a second one. Yep, truss head screw number 2. This is a shorter one. And this is the game sometimes you have to play. I'm going to go with, I think, this one. Selected. I'll just go here and OK. And I think that should do it. Okay. Now, I've got my final assembly done. There it is. In all its splendor and glory. You can play with it a little bit, rotate around. You can kind of see how this thing works. I'm just moving my mouse. That's how a grinder assembly works, okay? Now I'm kind of putting it in the same view that I see it over here in the actual drawing, all right? So I'm basically got it in this exact same kind of orientation right here. Now to create this drawing, this is a pretty big drawing. You see there's a lot of stuff to it, quite a bit we have to bring in. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by opening up a GHSB inch piece of paper. And then we're going to start putting everything on here as in the scale that are supposed to be based upon each thing. So I'm actually going to put each of the parts on here, okay, get it all set up, and then I'll come back and start throwing some dimensions on here. All right, I'm going to try to make it as quickly as I can. I may not get through the whole thing because I want to focus a little bit more on the bill of materials over here and the balloons, but I'm going to walk you through this. So again, I'm going to go here and start with a GHSB inch. Move this over. I'm going to do a File New, SOLIDWORKS Templates, GHSB will be it. Just a GHSB is fine. That's the inch one. And I'm going to say OK. Now, once this opens up, it'll take just a second here. I am now going to go ahead and I'm going to start by going in and browsing for parts. Okay, because not all my parts are open. So I'm going to go to where I saved all my parts, and I'm going to start with my grinder assembly last name right here. I'm going to say open. Same setups we've been doing over and over. I'm going to start with the front view, a preview. This one will keep our hidden lines on. And now what we're going to do is we're going to come in here a scale of 1 to 2. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to kind of blow up on this corner. I'm going to put a front view, a top view, a right side view, and hit escape. Okay, now I'm going to introduce something here to you for a new view. You'll notice this is a bigger view than all of them. This is a 1-to-1, and it's basically what we call a crop view, or in this case, really a detail view. What a detail view does is basically you're going to cut this out and make it bigger so you can, quote, see the details. Okay, we're going to start adding these elements into our drawings from here on out. So we're going to learn some new things with our drawing tools, or our draw setup tools. Okay, so what that means is if you look in your view layout or drawing, either one, okay, I go to drawing or view layout, there is one specifically called detail view. When you turn it on, all you have to do is come in here. I'll say cosmetic thread, I'll say high quality, that's fine. Cosmetic thread display. But then all I'm going to do is just come in here, click on that midpoint and pull a circle. About that big will be fine. Everyone's will be slightly different. It just depends on how far you pull your circle out. I'm going to left click, and then I'm going to pull this up. And this one you can pull pretty much anywhere. I'm just going to kind of line it up right here in the middle, and left click again. Okay, I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to take my letter B and kind of rotate it off the part with a left click and hold. That looks good right there. Okay, this takes care of all of this view here. Okay, so we are done with our detail. All of our views are taken care of. We are pretty much ready to go here. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and add in my slider piece up here. Okay, I'm going to do a front, top, and right side view, no isometric. So I will now go to model view. Okay, I'm going to browse for my part, and I'm going to browse for my slider. Say open. Again, front view, preview, hidden lines are on, but scale on this one will be at 1-to-1. So we'll rotate up, 1-to-1. Start with my front view here, a right side view right here, top view right here. I'm going to hit escape and delete this tapped hole. Okay, so there's the views for this one. Now, I'm going to put my handle right over here in this area. Okay, so again, I'm going to do a front, top, and right side view on this. So under drawing, I go to model view, browse. I'm going to go find my handle right here, open, front view, hidden lines on, and scale will be at 1 to 2. So I'm going to drop this down, custom scale 1 to 2. From here, I'm just going to start with my front view. It's approximately right about here. I'm going to go with a top view, a right side view, and then hit escape. Okay, now what's going to end up happening here, we will have to probably adjust a bunch of our views here just because we got to make things fit, and that's okay. All right, so for instance, I'll probably end up taking some of this, slide this over a little bit more, bring this over a little bit more, which will then allow me to take all this and bring this over a little bit closer, because I still in this corner need to put in my grinder knob. All right, so I'm going to go into my model view. I'm going to go browse. I'm going to go look for my grinder assembly knob, and I'm going to say open. Scale on this one will be at 1 to 1. So front view, preview, hidden lines on, custom scale 1 to 1. Okay, now from here, I'm going to start about right here in the middle, about approximately here. I'm going to left click and pull up, and then I'm also going to pull down, and then I'm hitting escape to turn this off. Okay, left click on this tapped hole and hit delete. Now, you'll look at this drawing right here that I have. Okay, here's our model. We have this special view over here. This view is called a section view. A section view is literally where you cut a part open so you can see what's inside of it. The reason we're doing this is because we want to see this screw hole in solid form, because we cannot dimension to hidden lines. Okay, so it's important we actually cut it open to take a peek inside. So to do that, we go back to our drawing tab, and in here you're going to see the thing called section view, which is cut in half. Okay, when you click on this, you have choices. You can cut a vertical line, you can cut a horizontal, you can cut an angle or auxiliary measurement, or you can actually draw lines and have it cut through several different layers in order to get a very custom view. We're just going to do a vertical line. All I'm going to do is line up and click anywhere on the center right here, just so you see that little thing come up. I'm going to left click. I'm going to pull or hit my check mark. Actually, I'm just going to hit my check mark. I'm going to pull to my right, okay, and left click. Now, what you're going to see here is that suddenly it says section C, but on my drawing, it is section AA, okay? So if you look here, it says A and an A. We need to change this. So to do that, over here where the letter is under cutting line, where it says letter C, turn on your caps lock and type in A, okay? And that takes care of that. All right, now, in addition, I'm going to highlight this tapped hole and hit delete, grab my section AA, left click and hold, and just pull it down below a little bit. And now there is this view for this part here. I'm just going to slide these over, okay? Now, from here, I am going to go ahead and bring in another model view. I'm going to bring in my assembled grinder assembly. Okay, so I'm going to bring it as an isometric with color. And the scale on that will be at 1 to 2. Okay, we did not do an exploded view for this one. So this one here, I'm just going to kind of place right about there. Okay, I'm going to hit my check mark. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky. Okay, this is all new stuff to you. This is why I'm kind of throwing this out there and I'm doing the video. What I'm going to do next is do a control and a tab key. Okay, and what that's going to do, it's going to come back into my original assembly. You could also come to the bottom screen down here and open it up this way also. Okay, all I'm going to do is use my up arrow. I hit it like 5 times, and I'm just going to sit right there. Okay, 5 times. I'm going to do a control S, just save and save all. Okay, yes. Save it. I'm going to rebuild and save the document. If it asks where to save it, go to your desktop, save it to the desktop, say save. Okay. Sometimes it gets really funky and you have to keep saving it to certain spots. Now, with it looking like this, Control Tab key, go back to your drawing. Now, go back to Model View under the Drawing tab. Okay, double click your final grinder assembly one more time. But this time, instead of bringing in the isometric view here, I want you to bring in current model view. If you turn that on, the view it currently is sitting at in that saved state that we just did is the view that will come in. So if you add color, there it is. That is the last view, the current model view. We tilted it. This is that view. Okay, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to drop this over here. And again, I probably went one tab too high. I went 5. I probably got away with 4, but that's okay. All I want to do is make sure I see that screw. I'm going to left click. I'm going to turn off my drawing view here and get rid of this black line. Okay, so now at this point, all of my drawing views are in. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is start adding in my notes and dimensions. Okay, I also need to make sure that I have all my center marks in their proper spots. So for instance, on this part here, there are some center lines going through this like a cross. Okay, to turn that on, I'm going to go to my annotation toolbar, but instead of center mark tool, I'm going to use called center line tool. Okay, and when you turn that on, you'll say select view. You can actually select inside this view, but nothing's going to happen because it's looking for holes. The way you can make this work is by, instead of select view, turn that off, you can actually pick 2 lines here and here, and it will automatically drop a line right in between. Okay, so I need that plus sign in there. Okay, I'm going to hit my check mark. All right. Everything else, I had all these center marks in. The only thing I have left to do is I need to add in some tiny center marks up here. So what I'm talking about, let me slide this back over. I want to show this to you. Get my drawing. Okay, so there are those plus signs right there. Nothing there. These are all there. These were all there. Those were good. But you'll notice here in this corner, there are 2 little plus signs. Actually 3. There's one there, one here, and one here. Okay, those are center marks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this and I'm going to turn on my center mark tool. Now, to make this work, I need the small center marks. So what I'm going to do is go here where it says use document defaults. I'm going to uncheck that. Uncheck my extended lines. And then I'm going to start clicking on all my curves. So I'm going to click on this top one. That puts a plus sign down here. Click on this one. Puts a plus sign right in here. This one puts a plus sign right here. Okay, and I believe, is it on both sides? Nope, that's all I need. Okay, so at this point, I hit my check mark, and now I can start adding in all of my notes. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and start adding in not only my notes, I'm going to add in all of my whole callouts and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go ahead now and let me expand my drawing here. I'm going to go ahead and start turning on, and I'm going to start in this lower corner with my Smart Dimension tool. You could also do model items if you chose to. It's up to you. In this case, it's a little bit harder because we had so many views on here. It could get difficult to see. So what I'm going to do is just kind of focus in real quickly on each of these pieces. I'm going to start by hitting this left edge and this center line right here and doing a 1.75. It says 750. I'm going to come over here where it says document defaults. Record your game, stop. Okay, drop this to 0.12. And then in this white box with caps lock on, I'm going to type in a TYP. I'm going to hit this bottom line. I get a 3.500. Okay, well, I need to do 2 things. First, there's a box in front of this indicating this is a square. If you look over here to your left and put your cursor right here in this dimension text box and hit this little symbol right here, that box will show up. I'm then also going to change it from 0.123 to 0.12. Okay, so this view is done. This view down here, I'm going to hit this line right here. This is 0.75. I'm going to left click, change it from 0.123 to 0.12, and flip the arrows to the inside. At least I think I can. Maybe I can't. Okay, there we go. That'll work. I'll leave it like that. Probably better to keep them outside. All right, coming up this way, I'm going to go here. I'm going to hit this bottom line, or actually from this point here to this point here. I get my 0.50. I need to change that to 0.12. Okay, some of these will be 3, some of these will be 2. Now you'll notice this is in the way. So I'm going to hit escape and just left click and drag it down, bring this a little bit lower, and flip these arrows to the inside. Turn on my smart dimension again. I'm going to go from this line here to this upper line here. I get a 0.375. I'll flip the arrows inside. That will work. And then from this point here to this point here, I get a 0.313. Okay, so this view is complete. Okay, the only thing I'm missing is the note. Okay, and that's this one here. And I'm actually going to go ahead and take and copy this note. Do a Control-C. Go to my note tool and drop a note underneath. And do a Control-V. Okay, sorry about the interruption there. So now I got my note in here. I'm going to go ahead and highlight and center and underline. And scale 1 to 2 should also be centered. Okay, so that is all done now. All right, so there's that note. I'll drop that underneath. That looks good. So this corner of the drawing is now done. This is the way the whole drawing works. Okay, so again, looking here, we're going to do the same thing with the slider. I will actually end up copying this entire note here. So I'm actually going to do that right now. I'm going to copy this whole thing. Oops, right to here, truss head. Control-C for copy. I'm going to go up here real quick and add in my note tool. Drop in this left corner and do a Control-V. Okay, now this one here, I don't need to center it, but what I am going to do is I need to actually use my arrow key to line up each of these. Not arrow key, excuse me, spacebar button. Okay, so I hit my spacebar, and there you go. There is your note. That is all done. You don't need to type the whole thing in. Okay, don't waste your time on that. Now, with that being said, I'm going to drive this down just a little bit more. Bring this down to give me a little more space up here. And now what I'm going to do is start adding in all my dimensions for the slider. Okay, I'm going to go here to Smart Dimension. I'm going to go ahead and turn on this top one. It's going to be 0.75. Again, I'm going to take it from 3 decimals to 2. Flip the arrow inside. That looks good. Okay, this dimension right here says 225. It actually should be 4 decimal places, which is 0.2247. Okay, and then I'm going to flip, let me see, from this point here to this point here, pull out and to your right. This right here is going to turn into a 4 decimal place, 0.1234, and there's my 0.3005. Hit this point right here. So part of what we're doing here, you guys, is we're learning how to change our decimal places. This is important in the drawings. This one should be only a 0.1. I'm also going to take and raise this one up because I need to get this away from that arrow. Bring that up. Maybe bring this up just a little bit higher. That looks good. And there's my 0.2. Okay. From this top to this bottom here, I'm going to get a 0.6. I'm going to change that from 0.123 to 0.1. Okay. I'm going to hit the back end of this. Maybe. Come on. Flip. I don't know why it doesn't want to flip. Come on, Dot. There we go. Okay, now from here, I'm going to go and do this bottom line here. Again, that's going to be a 0.5. So again, we're practicing on just changing decimal places, and that's just simply by going to the left. Not sure why. Come on. Let's go. I'm not sure why it will not let that dot be clicked on. There we go. Okay, 0.5. All right, turning on my Smart Dimension again. Over here, I'm going to put in a 0.125 or 1250, so that'll work. And then last but not least, I'm going to use my whole call out. That's a new tool. We introduced it a little bit in the last couple classes. I'm going to click on this. And using that tool, since I used my whole wizard, I can click on this circle here, the whole wizard, and pull down into my lower right. And this will give me my entire number, my entire setup. Now, you'll notice, let me just point this out. You'll notice, I'm trying to see carefully here. Again, sorry for that interruption. But again, what you'll notice here is we did our whole call out, okay, right here. It gives us this information, but you'll notice on this one over here, this is actually 4 decimal places, so's this, and so's this. We have to change these. Well, if you look to your left right here, it says tap drill diameter 0.136. Well, if I change it to 0.1234, it becomes 0.1360. This 0.344, if you drop this down, well, there's that other number right here. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to go in here, and this number right here, and drop it to 0.1234. Okay, we should have a number in front of this, a number symbol. Okay, so in this case, you can go down to thread description is 832. I don't know if I can add the number symbol on there, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave that alone. Mod diameter, hole tap drill, hole thread class. I'll do this right here. Let me see. You know what? I'm not going to worry about that number 32 in there. That's okay. UNC-2B. We'll just leave that alone because we're not going to go ahead and change all this dual dimension stuff. We'll leave that one alone. Okay. I'm going to go down here though to thread class. We didn't add that in there, but we don't really have a thread class as we did not apply one when we did the whole wizard. So don't worry about it. There are ways to add that. We could do it, but I'm just going to leave that alone because we didn't talk about that. Okay. Last but not least, drop this down to the 2.5 and change it to 4 decimal places. Okay. So this note is now ready. I hit my check mark, and now I have my note looking just like it's supposed to here. Okay. Now, that takes care of this view. So I'm going to take this and slide it up a little bit. That looks good. Now let's focus in on this over here. Okay. So I'm going to go over here, kind of open this up. And now what I want to do is I want to get some of this other pieces taken care of. Okay. So I'm going to come in here, and looking at my model, I see that I need to go ahead and turn my smart dimension. And I'll blow up on this top piece. I will probably have to move this around, so I hit this bottom line. This is 4. I'm going to make it 4.0, so it's a 0.1. From the center of this edge here to here will be 0.375. That will work. This one will be 0.75, so I'm going to get rid of the 0 by going to 0.12. Okay, from here to this edge to the edge of the circle, it says 0.500. I'm going to change that to 0.1. From the edge of this circle to the edge of the center circle is 1.5. I'm going to get rid of the 2 zeros by making this a 0.1. From the edge of this circle to the edge of this circle is the same thing. Get rid of the 2 zeros by dropping it to a 0.1. Okay, I'm going to be looking that you're changing these decimal spots. This is part of this lesson, is making sure you can do this. Okay, on here, I'm actually going to pause for just a second. I'm going to pull this one down since it's really close to that note. And then I'll turn my smart dimension back on. I'll do a couple different things. I'm going to hit this edge right here and pull down. That looks good. And then I'm going to go up here to these holes and click on this one here first. I get a 0.200, but I'm going to add a note behind it called through all. And hit my check mark here. Okay, so I can pull that out. And then I'm going to go here and with my smart dimension hit this center hole. And in the white box, I will put in front 2 space X. Okay, then I go behind this space, or excuse me, enter through all. Okay, and hit my check mark. So now this I can adjust if I need to. Okay, and if I need to pull it down, that's fine. Okay, but this is now pretty well taken care of. I'll pull this down maybe a little bit lower, pull this down, give myself a little bit more space so that this isn't too crowded. All right, that leads us into the final piece. Okay, the final piece is this one here. Let me pull this over so you can see it. Getting this dimensioned here. Okay, so we're going to basically add in all our dimensions here. I'm going to use my whole call out for this one. We'll have to modify again. Okay, then we'll finish off on the bottom with our bill of materials and our balloons. Now, one of the things I haven't been doing, I'm going to go back real quickly and do. I forgot to get my note for the slider, so I'm going to go here and copy, Control C. Go back to here and turn on my note tool. Put my note underneath here and do a Control V. Okay, now again, I'm going to highlight this and center, highlight the top line and underline. Okay, so that note is done. I'm going to do the same thing with handle. Okay, I'm going to go to the other piece here, pull this back up. So I'm going to slide this over. I'm going to highlight the handle. Oops. Control copy. I'm going to turn on my note tool and drop this underneath right about there. And do a Control V. Highlight and center. Hit the top line and underline. Hit Escape. Okay. Same thing over here. We'll get these adjusted in just a second. I'm going to be able to pull this one up in just a moment like this. I can probably pull this up a little bit higher because these don't really have much for dimensions. Pull this one maybe a little bit more to my left and down. Pull this one a little bit right about there. That looks pretty good. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is take my hole call out here, and I'm going to tap on that hole there and pull. Okay. Now I want to look at my note real fast. The note shows me here, and I'm going to kind of slide over so you can see it better, 0.1360656, and then 4 decimal places in the last one. So again, I go to each one of these numbers. I'm going to change this 0.136 to 0.1234 here. Okay, drop the next one. I leave that. 832 UNC, we're just going to leave that alone. I'm going to go to the last one, which is the 0.5. And change it to 0.1234. Okay. Yes, there's supposed to be a pound symbol and all that stuff. Don't worry about it. We didn't add it in when we did the hole wizard. It is okay. So I'm going to take that and close that out. Slide this up a little bit. And now I'm just going to focus on this view right here. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on my smart dimension. I'm going to start by hitting this arc right here. I'm just going to kind of pull this. And then if you pull a little bit above, actually pull above, and then if you hit this little arrowhead on the back, the little dot, and I know this has been really fighting me, I don't know why. Come on. Come back to it, hit it again. Come on, there we go. You may have to move it a little bit, but that will allow it to jump in the inside like that. Okay, if you don't do that, I'm not going to mark you wrong. It's okay. I'm going to go ahead and go from this line here to this bottom and pull up and to my left a little bit. That's 0.125. I'm going to go from this line here to this line here. I'm going to do 0.757, but I need to change this to 4 decimal places. Okay, I'm going to go from this line here to this bottom line here. I get 0.325. Okay, and again, I'll pull these out a little bit further so there's some space there because these are pretty tight. This dimension right here is going to be 0.125. So I'll pull that down below. Looks pretty good. And then last but not least, I got a couple others. I got to take this arc right here, kind of pull out. This is where it gets a little tough. Okay, so I'm going to pull that kind of like this. What I will do is I'll pull the 753 a little bit further, pull that in, pull this, I guess. I may have to go a little bit more to my right here. Hold on. And pull this a little bit more to the left. Pull this way out. Pull this 0.325 out considerably. Okay, like so, and then that way this 0.2 can fit, and then same thing, I will rotate in and try to get that arrowhead to flip. There we go. Okay, that's probably the best I can do there. Okay, and then last but not least, I'll do this one right here. This one will be a 0.25. I'll just leave that right there. You could flip the arrow inside like that. That would be fine. That's what I did in my actual original. I am going to put one down from this center line here to this edge. It'll be 0.375. Okay, and again, I'll pull this one out a little bit further. That looks good. All right, and then this whole bottom line, will be from Smart Dimension from this left-hand vertical to this right-hand vertical. I get a diameter of 0.75, and I get rid of the 0 by getting this to 0.12. Okay, everything else looks good. I'm going to flip these arrows to the inside, and from there, I'll just kind of adjust and pull section AA down a little bit lower. Okay, so a lot of stuff going on in that one. Okay, at this point, this view is now done. So we are essentially almost completely finished with this drawing. It's a big drawing. Okay, I will add in a note. Excuse me, I sneeze there. I'm going to add in this note right here with a Control C. I'm going to go ahead and put my note below. Actually, I'll probably take these a little bit higher, maybe just up a little bit more. Pull this one up just a little bit higher. That way I have a little space. Pull that one down. Pull that slightly down. And now I'll take my note tool, put my node underneath here, and I'm going to do a Control V. I'm going to highlight center, and then highlight this top line and underline. Okay, and I'll just pull that kind of right towards the middle there. That looks pretty good. All right, last part of this. We need to add in that box of information below called a bill of materials. Okay, if you look at your annotation tab here, you will see that to the far right are tables. Okay, if you go to the tables right here, drop this down to bill of materials. Okay, it's a select a drawing view to specify the model for creating this bill of materials. You can pick on either one of these two. It does not matter which one you pick. I'm going to pick the left-hand side, and then make sure it says parts only right here, which is what we want it to default to, and then hit your check mark. Okay, now you're going to see a huge box come in here. Don't panic, just left click and put it in there. Okay, I'm going to hit escape for a second so we can kind of blow up on this. Now, I'm going to clean this up. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to double click in each box. I'm going to say keep link, and I'm getting rid of my last name. Okay, the only reason I save these is because usually when I have you do this, I have you print them, your bill, not your bill materials, your mass properties. This is how I know who it is, because your name will be on it. I'm going to do a keep link, get rid of this. Okay, double click, keep link, get rid of this. Okay, this one here, so I'm going to now start making some adjustments. Now, a couple things you can do. It's just like a spreadsheet. I'm going to pull that in there. I can pull this up a little bit. I'm going to pull this one up a little bit, tighten it up, pull this one up a little bit, pull this a little bit more to the right. So these are all on one line, which allows me to shrink it up, and I'm actually going to get this one here, keep link, get rid of my last name. Okay, and if double click in here, and if you double click keep link and come back outside, it shrinks down the size of the lettering. So same thing, keep link, and then click outside. That allows you to shrink things down. Bring this back in just a little bit tighter. Okay, grab this X. I'm going to bring it just below, like so. Okay, and now we're in kind of a better position. I can take my quantity, shrink that down. And then at this point, I'm simply going to take and just adjust this up a little bit higher. That looks good there. Okay, I probably should have done that instead of 5 hits my up key. I probably done 4 would have been better, but that's okay. What we're going to do now is looking at this. We're going to have to come in here and we need to add in our materials. Okay, so we're going to do that real quick is add in our materials. I'm going to go ahead now at this point and highlight this and do a control copy. I'm going to go ahead and add that node in there. And as you can see, I'm kind of running out of room here, so I may have to do a couple things. So I'm going to come in here. Kind of running out of room here, so there's not a lot I can do with this. I can shrink up this line a little bit more. That makes it a little bit better. Pull this down towards the bottom, and then what I'll do is I'll add my note right here. I'm going to do a Control V, highlight and center this line, underline this top line. Okay, like so, and hit escape. Now, you can see I'm still really, really tight here. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of slide that even up further. Again, this is part of the problem when you do a lot of these things on one drawing. You have to do a lot of fine-tuning. So I'll do this. Maybe I'll slide this over just a little bit more. Give myself a little bit more space here. Maybe slide this over just a little bit. That looks good there. And so forth. Okay, move my grinder knob up to here. And then grab these two views and just bring them up a little bit higher. Bring this one up a little bit higher and closer so this actually ends up right in between them. That's not too bad right there. Okay, a lot of fine tuning when you're done. All right, now this, obviously we got to add some more materials here. So looking at our drawing, almost done. I'm going to go ahead and change this over here. The base, I'm going to double click inside here. We're going to call keep link. We're going to call this alloy steel. Make sure you're in all caps. Okay, the slider itself, double click and keep link. This is going to be made of brass. Okay, grinder handle, double click and keep link. That's going to be a 6061 aluminum alloy. And then here, I did not put anything on my screws, even though I could have. Grinder assembly knob, double click, okay. Keep link, and this will be a manganese bronze. Okay, click there. And now I'm going to grab this and just shrink it up a little bit, make this box as small as I possibly can, and then slide back over so it's kind of centered up underneath my parts. Okay, so now I've got my bill of materials completed. The last part of this is to add the balloons. Now remember, you do not change anything in here at all. All mine is, and if you look at the one we originally built it off, mine I built differently. Okay, I started with the base, I went with the sliders, the handle, then I brought screws, then I did the knob, then I brought the other screw in. If you look at this one, the way this one was built, we went base, slider, handle, knob, and then started bringing in all our screws. Do not change it if you've done yours differently. If you did it like this, awesome. If you did it like mine in this directions, also awesome. You're going to get a perfect score on both. Okay, just keep it as is. I'm going to go to my annotation toolbar and turn on balloon. I'm going to begin clicking on each of my pieces. So I'll start with this one at the top. That is my grinder knob. I will hit this right here. This is my handle, number 3. That's grinder handle. Perfect. I'm going to hit on this screw right here and pull a little bit up to the right. That's number 4. That is a screw. And then I'm going to click on one of these sliders. Number 2, that is a slider. Okay. Hit the base right here. I'm going to kind of pull this one more this direction. That's number 1. And then finish off with this screw right here as number 6. Okay, I'm done with my balloons. I hit escape to turn that off. And then your final thing to do is change your title. Make sure you take the scale as indicated. Put your first initial last name, correct date, correct period, and check by me. Okay, as soon as you are done with that, you can either A, submit it into Schoology, or B, wait for class, print, and turn this in. Okay, with that said, I apologize for the length of the video, but as you can see, there's quite a bit to do on this. But now you can see how a true engineering drawing would look. With that said, go ahead and hit a save. Okay, go ahead and accept everything with save all. Yes, update your views before you save. Save it to your same spot as all your other files. Okay, and then get this submitted in and turned in. With that said, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I will be going over this in class also, but now you have the video to help accompany you. Good luck. Take care.